Hey there, and welcome back to the Drone Bay podcast. This is episode 2 of our rebooted show. I am Crovan, joined as always by my corp mate, co-host, and IRL brother, Tharus Marr. Tharus, how's your week been?
It's been pretty good. Been a little busy. Capped it off with Mother's Day today. Hopefully you remembered. If not, I'm sorry.
I
Not
did.
you
So you don't.
specifically, the listener.
I was
I
going to
know
say
you
I
did.
did, so you don't have to hear Mom complain about me not calling because I did.
Yeah, it's been good.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I've had a really interesting week in Eve Online. We're going to talk a lot about what I did in Eve this week as the show moves on. But first, I want to take a moment and talk about some of the news in New Eden. Obviously, Capsuleer Day events and the event and the login rewards and all that are still going on. And there was a strong sense. I saw it in a lot of places. I saw it in Discord. I saw it on Reddit. I saw it on the forums. People were not happy with the drops out of the filament sites for Capsuleer Day, and I kind of get it because early on, I made a ton of money. But if you're early into an event, you're gonna make a lot of money. That's just how that goes. But as things started to even out a little bit, people were having trouble sustaining the ability to run filaments. So if you went out into the event sites in K-Space and grabbed up a bunch of stuff and made your tier 1 filaments, then you had to have a lot of those to ensure that you'd still be able to continue making filaments without having to buy stuff from the market. Now, I was running them out of Jita, so that wasn't really a problem for me. But if you're running them out of low sec or God forbid JSpace, then you're going to have a hard time. So evidently, a couple days ago, as of recording this on Mother's Day, at least here in the United States, May 12th, CCP says they have buffed the drop rates for the BPCs and the supplies to continue making filaments for the tier that you're in. So you're still going to have to grind to move up the chain, or just buy them off the market if that's an option for you. But in order to be able to keep going, you don't have to kind of start over and go back to K-Space to those sites and do it that way. So that's a good change. And apparently they have altered some of the randomness, especially in the higher end filaments, because people were not getting great drops out of those EdenCom cans. And I guess some folks were not even getting EdenCom cans in the tier 3 and tier 4 combat sites, which the EdenCom cans is where the good stuff is. That's where so the Genolution boosters, a lot of the skins were in there. I think all the skins actually were in there. So they've tried to adjust the drop rate on that. I haven't heard much since then. I made those videos very early on in the event and then got busy with corp stuff and my own market stuff and didn't really do much more after that. So I don't know. Have you? Well, you ran the relic filament yesterday. How did you find the drops in there?
Nothing too crazy. I would like to do some more just to get some numbers in. Depending on how superstitious you are, I'm not superstitious. I am a little stitious though. CCP may have changed the drop rate several days after the event started, and so the first couple days were fantastic, and then maybe they dropped off, or maybe it was just enough people around it. It's hard to be sure, but I am glad they're taking a look at it and making the event more worthwhile. I still think there's some more things they could do to make a good event great. I wasn't around for it, but this is basically the Doctor Who event again. But that event had basically the same drops, plus it had some specific things. It had like the bow tie thing. The bow tie was worth a lot of ISK. And the bow tie, quote unquote, for this event is the skins, which are cool, but it just doesn't have the same draw, I think, for the big lottery item you want to pull out of there. And it's just making it feel like is running it even worth it still. It's nice that there's going to be more sustainable now. We can get some more data on, is it worth it? But it still feels just a little undertuned, which I get. They also don't want to have a very easy to do event that dumps a ton of ISK into the market. I understand that too, but I think there's a couple more opportunities for improvement here.
Yeah, no, so the Lashak skin, I think, is kind of the jackpot item this time.
I honestly couldn't care less, but I'm sure people thought about the bow tie too.
Well, I mean, the thing though, you make a good point though that it feels different being a skin than a bow tie that goes on your avatar, right? Because your avatar, that's always there, no matter where you are. If somebody shows info on you, they're always going to see that. But they're
Right.
only going to see that skin if you happen to be flying a Lashak.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess if you're structure bashing, then you can show off.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so yeah, that's the changes to Capsuleer Day. Let's talk about in about a month. We've got a big expansion coming, and we got some more info about it this week, and that is Equinox. So I'll let you start off this time, Tharus. What are your thoughts so far on Equinox?
So it's definitely some cool sounding stuff. Most of it is going to be impacting nullsec sovereignty systems. Obviously, we're not super involved in at the moment. But there are some toys for us to play with there. I think overall, I'm optimistic. They're making some cool changes. I am a little scared about more avenues for passive ISK generation coming out of nullsec. There's increasingly fewer reasons for them to ever leave, and they already have some of the best ISK making they can out there. So I'm curious to see how that impacts it. But if they actually do it in a way that produces content, so it could be decent enough ISK, but if it makes other people want to come in and take it, I don't think we have the full details on how all that works yet, but that could be really awesome. And then the only other thing that I've come up with going through the patch notes is that NPC dread and Titan attacks, that just sounds really cool and maybe more of a reason for cat pilots to exist. Because right now it feels like Marauders can basically do most, if not everything, that your capital ships can do without all the rigmarole of flying a capital ship around. So if they can make that more relevant, I'm also on board for capital ships mattering.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think I'm with you in that I do have some cautious optimism. You know, they're talking about some of these structures and the new capabilities and um, for upgrading systems and well, actually the new way that you're required to upgrade your systems in
Yes.
Sovnal based on these. But the Skyhook, it was either the Skyhook and or the Moon Drill. I think it might have been the Skyhook. Like can attract rats, so
Yes.
no more flying out there in an epithal.
Yes.
And maybe that's what those new haulers are for with missile hard points and stuff, so that you can get a couple of those out there, or send a Varger out there and call it good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do like the idea too of the planet of the skyhooks being hackable and being raidable because
Mhm.
there's some discussion, and I was actually this morning I was recording an episode of Declarations of War with our CEO Alexei of Card, and we talked about this too, and he's kind of in the same boat that there's the potential for more combat and more raiding style activity could particularly be good if you're looking at an asymmetrical warfare scenario. So Noir, which is a smaller organization, if we were up against a bigger Sov block or part of harassing a Sov block, we wouldn't necessarily have the numbers for a stand-up fight. But if there were ways that we could pop out of wormholes or and harass them by messing with their logistics chain, that's potential for some real content for everybody at that
Yeah.
point. And then of course we have the reef, and there's a lot of moons in the reef.
Yeah, so that'll be cool to be able to leverage that part of it for sure. I don't know a ton about even moon mining today versus how it's going to change going forward, but I'm excited with the opportunity to have more resources
Yeah.
available to ourselves.
Well, ironically, this kind of takes it back to closer to what it used to be, which
Yeah.
was completely passive. But now, I mean, I do like the fact that, if you do passively mine, you're not getting as much. So you're probably still not going to see people doing it on like R64s all that often because that's incredibly valuable stuff. So you want to, you want to slurp up every bit of that moon goo you can. But we're looking at R4s in J space, and as more residents move in, part of the deal is we're allowing folks to set up their own Athenors or whatever, but maybe down the road there is possibility for setting up some of these automated structures, especially on moons that haven't been claimed by anyone. There are still some questions though, because it's pretty clear that some of the reagents and things are going to have to come from Sovnal. So I'm sure there will be a market for that eventually as people start shipping it back to Empire space and whatnot, because people in low sec are going to want it too. So I'm sure it'll happen eventually, but it would also be fun to just go steal it from someone.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, still a lot on Equinox. CCP did put out a 10-minute kind of deeper dive into it, talking about some of the UI and that sort of stuff. I admit I didn't pay a ton of attention to like the UI of how it works because yeah, we don't live in sovereignty nullsec. Um, but yeah, apparently when you can hack it, the skyhooks you can hack like an ESS. So that'll be fun potentially.
Yeah, yeah. The only other small thing in Equinox that I'm not sure how much E players care about, but E Vanguard is actually pretty far up my alley. I'm a pretty big Escape from Tarkov player. I don't know how much you've heard lately, but they've kind of had a large issue on their hands where basically the devs are being not good people. So I'm excited for the potential of an Eve-based extraction shooter to show up, but I have not looked into it at all. So, but I know there's more of it coming with Equinox, so I'm going to keep an eye out for that for sure.
Right on. Yeah. Not good. But maybe we'll go over that later because I also dealt with some not good people here recently.
Yeah.
So let's move on a little bit to what has been more up our alley lately, and that is the Insurgency. As we record this, the new one just started, and I admit I had to do a double take because
Groundhog Day.
exactly the Guristas Insurgency is the FOB is in Ishamilkan, which is exactly where it was last week. So makes logistics a little bit easier, admittedly, but because a lot of people still hadn't moved their stuff out, so people are still kind of already set up in there. And this was the first time that I got to participate reasonably heavily in an insurgency. I ended up with about 600,000 loyalty points by the end of this one, and it went fast. The militias, the Empire militias, they've been getting spanked in both insurgencies the past couple weeks, and so yeah, I ended up with 600,000 LP. I was able to parlay that. I've still got some sell orders up, but was able to parlay that into well over $1 billion. So I made a video, a real brief video, just kind of giving a quick look into insurgencies, and I was talking about how much ISK you can make, and that definitely held up all the way through the insurgency. I was mostly doing plexes, did 1 or 2 ice mining ops, a couple of the mining ops, and just walked out with a ton of ISK for doing, mostly plex spinning, admittedly.
Yeah.
But there is some PvP in there, and there's always PvP to be had in the zone. Provided you're okay dealing with multi-boxers and whatnot. So what about you? What was you didn't get to do as much in the last insurgency.
No, I didn't do too much. I still, for the limited amount of plexes I did, I still ended up with about 180,000 LP. Still just sitting on that. I'll probably go through this insurgency round and then I'll try to dump that for money. So, yeah, I like how quick and easy it is. If you just want to go do 1 or 2 plexes, it takes 10 to 20 minutes depending on what type of plex you're doing, and then you can go to the next one or you can just be done. So that's been really good. I'm excited. I've got all my ships here and ready to go do some PvP to learn some of those things. Also, I got my frigates, my assault frigates, my destroyers, and some cruisers, and battleship in case things get really spicy. So I'm excited to get some real combat, and we're doing a lot of logistics lately with the reef, moving back and forth. So
well, and you have been you got to spend a little bit more time hacking and got some more sweet drops out there.
Friday nights are when I get my ghost sites. So I'm just
okay.
Mark that on the calendar from now on. I did get another ghost site this weekend. Walked out of that with about 200 or 400 mil. Got a BPC for each kind of tractor unit, but the Magpie is the spicy one there. And got a little brazen and hacked 2 Kansas side. The first ghost site I came across, I only did 1. This time I got a little spicy and grabbed a second one and warped out right as the rats were about to blow the place up. So
nice.
So now for the third time, I'm going to be ready because I know which the blueprints came up. I was like, oh God, which blueprints are actually worth doing? And so I just kind of panicked. Now I know which ones are worth doing, so I can immediately start doing cans as I scan them.
Yeah, if the word Omega shows up in any of those blueprints, then
yeah, I messaged you after. I was like, man, there was an implant blueprint, and I might have screwed up. And I looked it up, and that implant was a Gamma and only worth 20 million. So I'm glad I passed it over.
Yeah.
For the tractor unit that was worth 200 million. So.
Yeah, those MTUs, man, Abyss runners love those Magpies. So I'm sure a lot of probably C5 ratters like them too. So
Yeah.
they may use standard ones because it's a lot easier to kill theirs. All right. So yeah, no, the reef has been. We've got a lot of folks have been coming in. It's the first week or so after we got everything set up and we were spending all our time there. We were on contract there. Then kind of went away and there was a time when there was not a ton of activity in there. That has changed. Residents have been moving in. The chain is almost always fully explored now. And so there was actually one time when I screwed up and didn't have a seed in our own. I had characters in there, but none of them were great scanners. And so I was like, well, crap, if I need to get back.
Hmm.
So I've rectified that mistake, but now the chain is pretty much always scouted anyway. So it's been great. Um, the residents have been kind of banding together as wandering folks come through and looking for their own kind of content. And some of them have expressed interest in kind of learning the ropes of PvP when it comes to that. Because, these are largely industrialists and we're there, but they're to a certain degree, they're going to have to fend for themselves, especially if they're outside of the reef proper. So it's great that they're taking an interest in kind of wormhole living. So, which, involves expensive mistakes sometimes, just like everything in Eve.
Yes.
So yeah, the reef's going great. Like I said, I think we are still looking for residents. We still have lots of moons and lots of places to anchor structures. We do restrict the types of structures that you can anchor in there for what should be obvious reasons. But yeah, so you can hit up Alexeyev Card, and he can give you the rundown on how to become a resident of the continental reef and be our neighbors. Let's move on to my favorite piece of content I participated in this week. And it was this morning. It was right after we did the Declarations of War recording. It was originally around the time I wanted to do this, but you ended up having stuff to do anyway. So
Yeah.
I participated in my first wormhole eviction. And I was not expecting it. It kind of came up suddenly yesterday, this opportunity. And I'm not going to, I took a ton of footage today during the op, and I'm actually going to talk to some of the guys in Vaporlock who are the ones who turned us on to this to kind of get the full version of the story. But suffice to say, Noir is a mercenary corporation. If we are shooting at you, it's either because you're in our FAC war zone or we're being paid to. This one we did for free. And because of the short notice, we didn't have a huge presence there. But Vaporlock were able to get a bunch of different organizations together, some of whom are not blue to each other, let's just say. And everybody came together and evicted a group from a particular wormhole. The reason everybody was so willing to drop everything and do whole control for 48 hours and basically deny them the ability to get as much stuff out as they could is because these folks were fans of a certain symbol that was real popular in Germany in the 30s and 40s. I don't think I can say any of those words without YouTube getting mad. But yeah, we're dealing with that. And we saw screenshots. They would ransom wormholes from people building said symbol out of mobile depots and demanding like 5 billion ISK in ransom to not evict another corp. So yeah, a bunch of like-minded allied forces, you might call them, launched Operation Overlord, which was a massive success. There's a lot more to it. These folks had apparently bat phoned some potential allies, and then contact was made with those allies, and it was explained to those erstwhile allies the sort of things that the people who had bat phoned them were getting up to, and they elected to leave and not stand up and support this organization. So well done to them. They turned down what it would have been an epic fight. We had well over 100 people in there in a pretty tight doctrine. So it could have been an amazing fight. And I think there was some muttering that some efforts might be made to reach out again and be like, hey, meet us at the flagpole kind of thing, and so we can still have our fight if we want it.
Those
But
those types of things are fun. I did one of those when I was in Cal Mill a while ago, where there was a bemoaning of battleships not getting used enough. So we worked with Gal Mill to set up a battleship brawl at the flagpole at 3 o'clock. It was great fun. So yeah, if that comes up, I'd love to do
well, yeah, and my understanding is that sort of thing is not uncommon in
that.
J Space either. So which I think is amazing. I love that about J Space. So yeah, as I said, I filmed. I took a lot of film during that. It's yet more footage of me in a logistics ship. So, but I do have the proper skin on. I have the ambulance skin on every one of those ships that I'm flying. Though I did have to emergency contract Crovan a skin from one of my alts because he did not have the Frontier Guardian Basilisk skin, and I had to reship into a Basilisk because they needed help with cap chain. But yeah, so I've got so much Logi video that I thought about doing a lo-fi Logi. Just have some lo-fi music in the background and just footage of a Logi for an hour. So if that would appeal to you, drop a comment below. And then yeah, there will be a video coming out about Operation Overlord once I get some of those interviews done. You've got more videos in the pipe too. You filmed the ghost site you were describing earlier, yes?
I filmed that ghost site. It's probably going to be a either part of another video or just a quick voiceover job. There was some language used while recording that probably did not want to make it to the final cut because I was clenched a little bit. I've never seen a ghost site that made me feel calm. So yeah, that footage should be coming out in some form or another here in a bit. I might even try some YouTube shorts. We'll see.
Nice.
But yeah, and then if there's any videos that people want to see, I'm very excited about making content. I love getting in the editing program and doing that kind of stuff. So if there's videos people want to see, I would love to see that in the comments, and we can see what we can get put together. Whether it's new player stuff or stuff you want to see from experienced people. We know a lot of people, and I'm a very old new player, so we can get that set up for you.
Yeah, for sure. And I did appreciate that you put out a hacking video to kind of redeem the channel from the terrible hacking that I did in the event site. So I was like, oh no, this is what it looks like when someone does it who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, that's true. Whenever I do finish the relic filaments for the event stuff, I can either add the ghost site one to that, because the hacking I showed off in that video is very much this is your first hacking site. So, and I explained some of the tips, but if people want to see more advanced hacking stuff, that video should be coming out in the next week or two.
Yeah, and if the name of your site starts with covert, it should not be your first hacking site.
Right.
That much I know. All right, so let's move on then. Other things I've been thinking about. I have rolled a new alpha on a brand new account, and what I'm considering doing is getting a tune from that account into Insurgency in a pirate militia, and just using the resources that character generates. So yeah, I'm still debating how exactly I'm going to do that, but I think it's completely viable, and I think you could make a lot of ISK, but logistics might be difficult. So I'm still considering what I'll do and what rules I might set for myself. So
I love that kind of content though, where it's making your own way and the incremental progress you can make in Eve. I think we talked about it last week, but that's one of the cool aspects of Eve.
yeah.
The progression.
Well, we talked about a Nomad's Tale last time, I think, and that's actually a great segue to talking about content we liked this week. And I have watched probably 2/3 at this point of the Corvette to Cynabal playlist, and because he was the guy behind that was a guest on Declarations of War a couple of weeks ago, and so I'd started watching it, but now I'm way into it, and it is just so cool because this guy is obviously a very experienced player. He knows how to play the game, but is going from a new character in a Corvette with no career missions, no player market. He's got to build or loot everything he uses, and he's trying to get to building a Cynabal and taking it to Zarzak. And it's some of the stuff he's had to do, like ice mining with an ice drone in a thorax. Now,
Here is it.
right, I used to mine in a thorax, but it was 2006 in my defense. So yeah, no, and he's just got a great delivery. He's got a great attitude. I've seen him take a couple big losses, and I just love it. So yeah, my understanding based on the declarations of war show is that his channel name is actually a fairly offensive word or phrase in to the Quebecois.
Oh,
So,
whoa.
but if you YouTube Corvette to Cynabal, you'll find it, and it's fantastic. Highly recommended.
Yeah, I
Also,
watched the first episode. I need to go finish the rest.
yeah. So also it's good. I'm on episode 30 something, I think. Um, Declarations of War, we've mentioned it multiple times. I was a guest this week. So if you go check that out, I will be on that talking with Alec about some more of a little bit more in depth on my history in the game, and then the history of the drone bay and what we have going now. So yeah, what about you, Theris? What's the content you were into this week?
I'm going to give a shout out to Amoni Panala, who I believe is also associated with Eve Uni. But if you've ever looked up like on YouTube like Eve Online Mechanic how to or guide, you've probably seen one of their videos come up. They have the whole spectrum of content in a very well laid out instructional format. And so I've been educating myself on a lot of the systems I've never interacted with. I was like, how does one actually fly a capital ship? I watched one of their videos. How does one do stealth bombers and that kind of stuff, drop bombs? I watched one of their videos. So they've been really great at providing educational content for me for mechanics I haven't participated in. So that's a lot of what I've looked at. That and then also some Brave Dojo videos along the same lines.
Yeah, no, I actually I've watched some of their videos as well, and I agree. They're very well done, underviewed in my opinion. Though,
Yes.
with stuff like that, with Eve tutorial stuff, a lot of that's going to be search based, right? So if you're reporting on, like the new patch notes or whatever, that's going to be that's going to get clicks on people's browse page. But if somebody wants to find out, how to properly deploy a bomb in a bomber, that's something you're going to hit the search function for. So,
Right.
so all right. Well, that's the content we liked. We both had longer lists that we wanted to include. I was like,
We'll
well,
have more for next time.
yeah, exactly. I want to make this a regular segment, so let's save some of that. So moving on, I turned it to you this week, Theris, for module, item, ship, a thing in the game of the week. And what did you pick?
So last week we talked about your favorite module, which is damage control. This week we're going to talk about my favorite module, which is the 1600 mm steel plate. Because I like my ships big and I like them bricked up. So I've always been partial to armor tanks, and this is step one of how to do that. Most of the time, there's fits that don't use it, but it's a very very simple module. It adds anywhere from 3,500 to 4,800 HP to your armor, and it makes your ship heavier. That's it. That's all it does. And it adds 40 HP to hull, but
It makes you thick.
so it makes you heavy and it makes you thick, and that's just the kind of play style that I love. Get a Brutix or a Blaster Megathron, warp it at 0, and say what's up.
Yeah, especially if you've got Logi. So a lot of the time when people fly solo fits, they'll rely on hull tanking, especially in Galente hulls, because Galente do have more hull hit points on average than any of the other racial ship types. But where the plate really shines is when you've got friends, right? So running a local tank, especially a local armor tank, can be very intensive on both your fitting, but more importantly, your capacitor. You could run an Ansil, but once you run out of paste, then you're going to be sucking that cap dry quick, fast, and in a hurry. But yeah, you've got a plate on and some resistance mods, throw in an Executor, an Augurer, something like that, and all of a sudden you are one tough nut to crack.
Right. Once you've got enough HP to have a solid buffer, and if you have the support, then yeah, you're very, very difficult to take out.
Yeah, it's yeah, exactly. You can't be remote repped when you've been alphaed. So,
Yes.
in fact, we had a couple close calls with that today on the structure bash. There were some structure fighters that got put onto some destroyer sized vessels, but we saved them. I was full Logi bro today, and the Logi bros and the Logi siblings, because we there were it was not just bros. The Logi siblings did a great job in that op today. All right. Well, if you have a favorite module, item, ship, other interesting, fun thing in EVE Online, and you want to hear us talk about it in the future, go ahead and drop it down in the comments. And I put on our show notes here, I have "Don't Panic" with a question mark. And then you very helpfully pointed out, Theris, that you kind of already did one of those on hacking.
Yes.
So instead, we will just send people to the video that you've already done. And unless I'm mistaken, that's your first like actually produced, put together video,
Yep,
right?
that is my first produced piece of content. It was super fun. Learning DaVinci, which is the program, which is free, by the way. If anyone's ever interested in making content, DaVinci Resolve is free and incredibly powerful. It's what they use for professional videos, all the way down to that tiny video that I put on YouTube this week. So um, it was great. We'll put a link into it. I might even rebrand the video as "Don't Panic." I don't know, we can see how we want to do that in the future. But yeah, if you have any questions about how to start hacking, go check out that video. I think I did an okay job, and I even showed you the joke about exploration cans is that you often open them and get a single carbon, but that single carbon can save your life. And if you want to know how, go watch that video.
Ooh, I like it as a nice hook. I like that a lot. And you're right, you did. And I did not know that, though. As soon as you explained it, I was like, oh, sure, of course, that makes perfect sense.
Secret hack.
All right. Well, with all that said, I think we may be close to bringing this episode of the Drone Bay podcast to an end. Anything else? Anything you're looking forward to this week, Theris?
Hitting the new insurgency right from the start. I've kind of the right when we joined, one was just wrapping up, and then this other one we were kind of tied up with reef stuff. So this one just started today on May 12th. So I'm looking forward to getting a full cycle of that in. Um, the only other thing I want to bring up is if you guys want to join us in Noir or Noir Academy, if you don't have the skills you want to learn, definitely look us up. I think we've got some detail. We'll have the Discord in the description of this video. And if you look up Noir dot in game, you'll be able to find our corp and all of our diplos there.
Yep. And then we do have the in-game channel Cafe Noir. Again, that's noir dot. And so, yeah, absolutely. We are actively recruiting right now. We have a ton of stuff going on. No matter, if you're not super interested in PvP, we do have the Reef, and we are still actively seeking residents for the Reef. And then, yeah, like Theris said, even if you're a new bro but are interested, or just an experienced pilot who hasn't done much PvP, Noir Academy is there for you as well. We're trying to get some more folks in there, and I think there's a lot of thought going into how to handle Noir Academy going forward and how to make it as successful as it can be, and set those pilots up for success with us, and then maybe eventually with other organizations as well. So. Well, with that said, I think that is the end of this episode of the Drone Bay podcast. I'm Crovan.
I'm Tharus.
Good hunting.